In these Parashiyot, Shelach and Torah, as well as other Parashiyot, one comes across a very familiar phenomenon, an unfortunate phenomenon, that people change, not for the better, for the worse, especially when they get into a position of power. Typical example of politicians who promise the world before they're elected, and after they are elected and they're in a position to do something, all of a sudden they don't deliver on what they promised. Are you all familiar with this? This has happened throughout history. What happens to this individual? Is he just a liar? Or was he really honest and sincere, but something happened? And that is something that we need to explain, because that is one of the ideas that one comes across in this parasha as well as the other parashiyot. You're dealing with good individuals, Anashim Ksherim, the heads, the leaders of Am Yisrael, the leaders of the tribes, who the commentary said before they went on to spy on Eretz Yisrael, on this mission, they were Anashim Ksherim, they were good people. They were tzaddikim, they were righteous. After they came back, no one could recognize them. Not at least from their behavior, not from what they said. Something happened to them. So why does it happen that people change for the worse? So I'm going to deal with this question from three different angles. Angle number one is, how come somebody corrupts himself? In other words, becomes corrupted in his way of thinking. Number two, how come people are misled? They had a clear plan. They knew what they wanted. Nevertheless, at the end, something happens and they are misled. And the third angle will be, why is it that some people, mishtabesh alehim da'atam, as we say in Hebrew, they go berserk, they make mistakes, and they end up doing not what they originally wanted to do. This may sound to you a little bit similar, but they're different. There are some that actually become corrupted in their ways, and as a result of their corrupt ways, they do something contrary to what their beliefs used to be. People make mistakes, people are misled. So we therefore have to look at this from the various angles. I'm going to begin with the one that is the worst. People who actually become corrupted. Anashim mitkalkelim, v'nefachim liot mushhatim. They become completely corrupted. Their views are completely distorted and very different from what it was before. The simple explanation, without too much elaboration, is as follows. Very simple. It all depends on if a person thinks of himself. We're talking about politicians and leaders right now, but it also applies to others. What is his main goal? Is he thinking of himself? Is he out for himself? Or is he out letovat haklal? Is he really out to do what's best in the best interest of the people that he's serving? What is motivating him? And it may be that in the beginning, he is motivated by sincere wishes to do what's right, but in the end, something happens and he's completely corrupted. And he begins to think what's best for himself. So when someone is corrupted, we're saying that he no longer thinks in what's best for the klal, he thinks in what's best for himself. How do we figure this one out? Well, there are tests. One of those tests is, how interested is he in keeping his seat in parliament, or fighting for what he truly believes in? If he has to give up his seat, will he do so or not? And you are able to see this test ongoing in the Israeli Knesset. Do people really believe in what they believe? Do they stand for it? Are they willing to give up their position, their post, their salary for what they believe in or not? That is how you can tell if someone is for real or not, or if somebody is corrupted. In other words, he may have at one time wanted to serve his people, but something happened, and the challenge has arrived, and now let's see what do you really want to do. Do you mean yourself, or do you mean the benefit of the klal? One of the explanations, therefore, as to why the Meraglim, the spies who were sent by Moshe Rabbeinu to spy the land, to see Eretz Yisrael, to bring back a report to the rest of the people, what kind of a land it is. The reason why they came back with disappointing news, even though they were good people to begin with, is because da'agu lema'amadam. They were concerned about their position. What will happen once we finally arrive in Eretz Yisrael? We are going to lose our jobs. Very simple. And as a result of this concerns in their mind, they're thinking about this, what's going to happen? I'm not going to have the job, and I'm no longer going to be a leader. Because of that, they were, of course, misled. Their views became corrupted, and they turned out to be different than the way they were from the very beginning. This is a very important point. What's more important, your own benefit or the benefit of others? It's very important, especially in the area of husband and wife who are not getting along and who are about to get a divorce. Many, many times these couples have small children. Do you realize the damage you're going to be inflicting on those young children who are going to be orphaned as a result of your nonsense? After all, most divorces are about nonsense, not real issues. Did you consider that? Most don't. Why don't they? Because they're too engrossed in themselves. What is best for me? I want out of this situation because that's better for me. But what about your kids? Didn't you think about that? Most people do not evaluate the whole picture, do not consider that because they're thinking more about themselves. And that's very sad. But that's exactly what happens. Whether it's in politics, whether it's in the home, there's a continuous conflict between what one wants to do for others and what one wants to do for himself. And most people will think of themselves first. Even though we're dealing about an entire population, an entire nation, an entire country, it's the interest of the country, the interest of Am Yisrael. Petty politics, I think that's what they call it in English, sometimes can ruin a beautiful, idealistic plan. Just politics. And what's politics? When somebody thinks about his personal interest and not the true interest of the people. Nevertheless, we have to understand why someone who was good, kasher, all of a sudden begins to think of himself. I mean, what happened to him, psychologically, emotionally, if in the very beginning he was fine? He espoused a beautiful ideal. He meant well. What happened to him? We still have to understand the mechanics of this. What exactly happens? We're not dealing with a liar because he was sincere in the beginning. We're not dealing with someone who's selfish. We're dealing with a normal person because once you say we're dealing with a selfish person, well, that's easy. He's selfish. He's a liar. That's easy. We're not dealing with liars and we're not dealing with selfish people. So what's the mechanics of why a person can change if he in the very beginning meant well, he was sincere? So I'm going to quote you a midrash on this week's Parashat. You will find when you read the Parashat that there's an individual called Mekoshesh Etzim B'Shabbat. He gathered wood on Shabbat. He committed a transgression of gathering wood on Shabbat. And he was punished for it. And the question is, how did he come to that? Wasn't it obvious to him that what he was doing was asur? So Moshe Rabbeinu comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and says as follows. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you gave us such a beautiful mitzvah during the week called tefillin. When we put it on, we remember your mitzvot. It protects us. We don't get into trouble. But on Shabbat, we don't put on tefillin. And that is why this individual got himself into trouble. Therefore, give us a mitzvah that is 7 days a week. That this mitzvah should be able to remind us of our duties, of our mitzvot, that we should not make mistakes and commit sins against your will. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us mitzvah tzitzit. As a result of this request, mitzvah tzitzit applies 7 days a week, and it's a very valuable mitzvah, very, very important mitzvah. Not only is the reward immense, but it actually protects us. People do not realize this. For a few dollars, whether it's 6 or 7, depends if you buy wool or cotton, you have a beautiful mitzvah that is usually not seen by others, so you don't have to be embarrassed by it even, and it offers so much protection and so much reward. This mitzvah, therefore, will protect you 7 days a week. And that is how we got the mitzvah of tzitzit. What do we see from this midrash? That a human being, regardless of how good he is and how sincere he is, he needs constant reminders. Reminders in order that he not forget what his ultimate goal is. When we go on a freeway, especially in Southern California, there's Baruch Hashem good signs. They continuously remind you where you're headed, how many miles you have left. You have to know where you're headed. People are not always aware where they're headed in life. They forget why they came here to begin with. Or they were never told why they're here. So imagine somebody getting on a bus, sir, where are you going? I don't know. Well, that's exactly what a lot of people do in life. If you ask them, what are you living for? What are you doing here for? Try to ask this question to anybody, even a non-Jew. You'll be surprised at the answers you'll get. I heard one woman answer this question, just to enjoy the sun. It's a very, very difficult question to answer if you're not prepared. What are you doing here? Why did you get on the bus? Where are you headed? So most people don't ask themselves this question. They don't know where they're headed. A Jew needs continuous reminders of what he's doing here. Otherwise, he forgets himself and he makes mistakes. He may end up doing something that he was not sent here for. Chabad, to spend all this precious time and effort in something which has no value, because after all, you leave everything behind when you leave this world. So what for? What did you come here to begin with? And there's a famous story, a famous mashal of a poor man who tells his wife and kids, I'm going to be gone for a while, I want to bring parnasah, and it's going to take me a year. I heard about this beautiful island where there's diamonds everywhere. So allow me to go on this trip. Bezat Hashem, when I come back, we'll be happy, we'll be rich. He comes to the island and he sees that diamonds are like the dust. Everywhere there's diamonds. And he begins to put a few into his bag. And the people start looking at him. What are you doing? Diamonds? These are worthless. We have so much of this here. You don't need this. He says, really? What is precious? What is valuable over here? So they say potatoes. We don't have potatoes here. If you can get us potatoes, you become a rich man. So he throws out the diamonds from the bags and starts cultivating a potato field. And after he has made many potatoes, filled all his bags, time comes. He didn't realize, but time flies, and all of a sudden the ship is about to leave. And as he leaves, he starts thinking about how the time went by so quickly, and that how, Baruch Hashem, he made so many potatoes. He arrives at home, and his wife and kids go to greet him. They're so happy to see all these bags, but all of a sudden they smell something terrible. A terrible smell coming out from his bags. And they ask him, what's all that? He opens up his bags, and they see all these rotten potatoes from the whole way they became rotten. And they said, this is what you brought us? This is what you worked for? This is why we sent you away for so long, to bring back potatoes? Potatoes has no value. You can buy them for 39 cents a pound. Oy vavoy, what happened to all the diamonds that you promised to bring home? He said, I completely forgot about it. I thought potatoes were important. That's what they told me there. They discouraged me from collecting diamonds. And everybody's upset. What can they do? But when everybody went to sleep, the wife, who threw out all this rotten potatoes, discovered that there were 3 diamonds left in the bag. When he was emptying the bag, he didn't empty it all. A few remained at the very, very bottom. And from these 2-3 diamonds, Baruch Hashem, they were able to make ends meet for a number of years. And then Imshal, the moral of the story is obvious. We come to this world in search of mitzvot, of diamonds. But we are told by our friends and by everybody else, potatoes are more valuable here. Now, who cares? Diamonds are useless. What are you going to do with mitzvot? And we fall for it. And we start throwing away the mitzvot. We don't pick up any mitzvot. We just pick up potatoes. And eventually, after the boat comes and we have to leave, we can't hold the boat back. We take all the potatoes, and upstairs they make fun of us. All the rotten potatoes, this is what you were sent for. This is what you worked so hard for. And maybe, if we're lucky, there's 2-3 diamonds left that unintentionally we picked up when we were 13, 14 years old. We put on tefillin one day. We kept Shabbat one Shabbat. A few diamonds were left. That this will be the little bit of reward that will keep us in Olam Haba. But Chabad, we could have picked up so much. We forget ourselves. We forget what our mission is in this life, and we're distracted, and we do shtuyot, nonsense. That is why Hashem gave us the mitzvah of tzitzit, and what does it say in tzitzit? Uschartem. It's called mitzvotah, and you will remember. There are certain mitzvot that enable us to remind ourselves, to remember what our mission is, what we were supposed to do. And one of those mitzvot is tzitzit. Torah also emphasizes, Ani Hashem Elokechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, many times. I am the God that took you out of Egypt. What for? Just remember, it's me, not someone else. It wasn't by your own strength. You didn't do it. It was me. And what did I take you out of Egypt to begin with? What for? For you to receive the Torah. So we're continuously reminded what is expected of us. That is why the rabbis tell us elsewhere, whoever has tzitzit on his body, tefillin on his head, in a mezuzah on his door, muhzaku shelo yahda. He has a hazakah. The chances are better that he will not come to sin, because he's protected continuously by the malachim that he creates from those mitzvot. These malachim will continuously remind him. Goes out the door, sees the mezuzah, he kisses it. These are reminders. A Jew needs continuous reminders. And without these reminders, that is how we are misled, that is how we make mistakes, and that is how people change. They forget what the real goal of life is. They forget what the real mission is. The real mission was, in the case of politicians, was to serve the people. But all of a sudden they got confused. They saw a good salary, they saw some benefits here, and they forget about their real mission. That was the angle of how people become corrupt. We discussed how people change and how their views have become corrupted. Now we'll talk a little bit about how people are misled, and as a result of that they make mistakes. It says in the Kriyat Shema that we should be very careful. Be careful not to follow what your heart desires and what your eye sees. And the word levavchem is plural. It should say libechem. We only have one heart, not two. So why does it say levavchem? So the commentaries say, because we have two yetzarim. We have the yetzer hatov and the yetzer hara, the good inclination and the evil inclination. Why then does it say lo taturu achar levavchem? Why can't I go by my yetzer hatov? So what if we have two yetzarim? It should say lo taturu achar libechem. You one heart, the yetzer hara. You should not go by what the yetzer hara tells you. But what's wrong with the yetzer hatov? The good instinct, the good inclination. So the rabbis explain that what happens is that sometimes the yetzer hara comes disguised as the yetzer hatov. And I'm going to tell you a story and you will understand this. There was a rabbi by the name of Rabbi Nahum that was trying to collect 50 rubles for a poor Jew who needed to marry off his daughter. That's what he needed, 50 rubles to make their wedding. And Baruch Hashem, a day later, he meets up with a rich man who exactly gives him the amount he needed. Here, Rabbi, take this for tzedakah. 50 rubles. As soon as he received the money in his hand, he started thinking, wait a minute, why should I give the entire 50 rubles to that poor man? All he needs is really 20. I'll do more mitzvot with the other 30 and give it and distribute to more poor people. Logical, makes some sense, no? But he said to himself, wait a minute. Who's giving me this advice? The yetzer hara. This is not the yetzer hatov. My original kavanah, my original intention was the right thing to do. I originally planned to give this money, to collect this money for this one individual. He needs the help. Even though right now I'm getting all these ideas of doing a lot of good to many people, it's a good idea, right? It's a mitzvah, many mitzvot. But these good ideas are coming from the yetzer hara, disguised as the yetzer hatov. So sometimes that is exactly what happens. People are misled because who is speaking to them? The yetzer hara, disguised as the yetzer hatov. What you're doing is really a good thing. But you have to be very careful because it's the yetzer hara speaking to you. The question now is, how do we save ourselves? How do we protect ourselves from this armumiyut, from this sly yetzer who attempts to disguise himself as the yetzer hatov? How does one protect himself from that? So the commentaries explain that the yetzer hara can only cheat one who cheats. What does that mean? If one is a liar, the yetzer hara comes to him with that same ammunition and lies to him. In order to protect yourself from lies, you have to always be dover emet. Always speak the truth. If you always speak the truth, if the yetzer comes to you with a lie, you'll be able to identify this. Oh, this is a lie. This is the yetzer hara. This is not the yetzer hatov. It can't be. If you train yourself to always speak the truth, and there's one exception. When are you allowed to say a lie? Shalom bayit. You want to make peace between a husband and wife, you can say what appears to be a lie to the wife. Listen, your husband very, very much loves you, even though he's very upset at her. But, it's okay to say something like that. After all, you're trying to make peace between them. And the other way around, you can tell the husband that the wife really wants to make up, even though she doesn't want to. Right? The fact is that this is a way of bringing the two together. There are many, many problems in Shalom Bayit that can be resolved by convincing each one separately what the other's intentions really are, even though you were not told that. Because that's a way of calming the situation down, and that is why it's permissible. Otherwise, a person has to be very careful from never lying, and included in lies are exaggerations. A lot of people tend to exaggerate, and that is how rumors spread. A rumor is an exaggeration, is an additional word added until it becomes a completely different story. Therefore, one who is truthful, always speaks the truth, will be protected from this armumiyut, from this sly yetzer hara trying to disguise himself as the yetzer hatov and misleading him. Because, unfortunately, today, Am Yisrael is not very truthful. The Arabs, therefore, don't believe us. We say, this is our land. They say, ma pitom. Because we're not behaving ourselves truthfully. We're not acting truthfully. There's a story several years ago, during the first Intifada, I think it was, where an Arab was in jail, during Pesach, and he sees the guard eating chametz on Pesach, eating a pita. So he asks him, don't you know it's Pesach? The Arab asks the Jew. He says, yes, then why are you eating bread? Your Torah says you cannot eat bread. So I don't want to say what the Israeli said because it's not so nice. He basically discounted the whole thing. And the Arab says, you know what? Now I know for sure we're going to defeat you. Because if you're not following the Torah, you have no protection. Even the Arab knew the truth. If we deceive ourselves, we lie to ourselves, right? The enemy will defeat us. Yes?
Meraglim speak the truth, Rabbi?
They exaggerated. The Meraglim spoke the truth, but they exaggerated and they instilled fear. And there were other problems with what they said too. It's not sometimes what you say, it's how you say it. So this is how people are misled by the Yetzer Hara, disguising himself as the Yetzer Tov, and if one would speak the truth, he would be protected from that Yetzer. Now let's go over to the third angle. How is it that Anashim Kesherim, good people, righteous people, Nishtabsha Alehem Da'atam, V'ta'u, they made a serious mistake in how they evaluated the situation in Eretz Israel. After all, they made a mistake. They came back with a very pessimistic prognosis. I think that's the word, right? Report of what's going to happen, and that's a mistake. After all, how do we know it's a mistake? Hashem promised, Eretz Zabat Halav U'Dvash, everything will be okay. How could they make such a terrible mistake? You may have heard that there are various types of burdens and yokes that we carry in life. There is the Ol Torah, the burden of Torah, and there's the Ol of Derech Eretz. The Ol of Torah is the burden of learning Torah, fulfilling the Torah mitzvot. It's a yoke. It's something that we carry. We are committed to it. It's a responsibility. And then there's something called Ol Derech Eretz. Ol Derech Eretz is the yoke of worldly things. We have to pay our gas bill, our phone bill. We have to repair if something gets broken. We have to deal with worldly matters. That's called Ol Derech Eretz. We all have an Ol. We have to deal with it. And the rabbis tell us, Kol HaMekabel al atzmo Ol Torah, ma'avirim mimeno Ol Derech Eretz. In Pirkei Avot it says that if you accept upon yourself the Ol of Torah, very, very much, that's all you want to do, Hashem will liberate you, will free you from having to have too much Ol of Derech Eretz. If you remove the Ol Torah, then Hashem says, well, you have to have some Ol. I'm going to give you a lot of Ol of Derech Eretz. These are the two very familiar Ol, the Ol of Torah and Ol of Derech Eretz. The two cannot get along. They're very, very different. And you choose which one you want. The same is true with another kind of Ol. There's Ol Malchut Shamayim, and there's the Ol of the Yetzer and the Ta'avot. There's the yoke of heaven, doing what Hashem expects of us. Then there's the Ol of the Yetzer, what the Yetzer wants us to do. After all, he has a job. In the Ta'avot, what our bodily desires want. This can also become an Ol. The typical example of an Ol of Ta'avot of desire is addiction. One who's addicted, whether it's to cigarettes, whether it's to drugs, whether it's to alcohol, whether it's to food. Some people, as soon as they see food, they go crazy. But you just had dinner 3 hours ago, but so what? It's an Ol Ta'avot. You can't resist it. Another opportunity to make a few more $1,000, but you have millions. It's an Ol, it's a Ta'ava. It's a burden. It's irresistible. So you have this Ol. You have Ol Malchut Shamayim and you have Ol Yetzer V'Ta'avot. The human being decides which one he makes more important in his life. Right now, even though I said human being, we're talking about the Jew for the most part. The Jew decides if he wants to be Meshabed His Kokot, if he wants to put his efforts more into doing the Ratzon of Hashem, that's more important, or if he's going to be occupied himself in this world, in this life, with satisfying his all, his needs, his personal needs. He makes that decision. The mitzvot of tzitzit and tefillin were given to us to strengthen the Ol Malchut Shamayim, that bond between us and the Almighty. All the mitzvot, of course, strengthen that bond, but tzitzit and tefillin especially have that segula in them, that they strengthen the Ol Malchut Shamayim on us. And therefore, tzitzit and tefillin are both mentioned in Kriyat Shema, in the Shema Yisrael that we say several times a day. Because it's very important that a Jew continuously strengthen his Ol Malchut Shamayim. He continuously strengthens that bond between him and the Almighty, continuously strengthen that awareness of what Hashem's expectations of us is. Now, in order for that Ol Malchut Shamayim not to be weakened, one has to be very careful not to express doubts and ask questions. What do I mean by that? Many Jews who are not observant excuse themselves for not doing something. I don't understand, what is this for? and therefore I don't agree to do it. I don't understand why I can't eat non-kosher food. What's your explanation for it? They want to first understand, even though it's only an excuse. They want to first understand before they do something. Then there are people who express doubts about what is happening in Israel or what is happening elsewhere. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Why is Hashem doing this? Why did Hashem bring about a Holocaust? A Jew has to be very, very careful with his emunah. Tamim tiyem Hashem elokecha. With his ol malchut shamayim. Not to express doubts and questions. It's very dangerous. If you ask, to ask is very important. If you have who to ask and you're willing to accept the answer. A person may not always have the opportunity to ask questions, or he may ask the wrong people. So you have to be very, very careful in expressing doubts and in asking questions. Unless, of course, you're talking to somebody who you can rely on his answers. What will happen if somebody has this attitude of questioning everything and expressing doubt? He's doing exactly the opposite of what our forefathers did. When they received the Torah, what did they say? What did they say? They said, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will first do, and then we will listen. We don't ask questions. We do, and then we ask. The Meraglim, Ol Malchut Shamayim, their yoke of heaven, unfortunately faltered. It weakened because they did exact opposite. They said, no, Nishma v'nir'eh, Hakach Na'aseh. Let us go see. Let us investigate. We want to be convinced that this is truly an Eretz Zamat Halav Udvash, that this is for our benefit. Why? Because we're questioning. Chalila, unfortunately. How could you question Hashem's promise? No. Their Ol Malchut Shamayim weakened as a result of them questioning, wanting to be convinced. There was a lack of Tmimut here. There was not enough bitachon b'Hashem, even though they believed in Hashem. And as a result of that, their Ol Malchut Shamayim, that bond, weakened. And they fell in this trap and made mistakes. Ol Malchut Shamayim is extremely important, and because it has been always important, if you just look back at any part of Jewish history, and you will find, other than in prayer and other than before you go to sleep, when does a Jew say Shema Yisrael? What? When you're in danger and you're facing death. Why? What does Shema Yisrael have to do with anything? A Jew was always trained to be mekabel al atzmo, to accept on himself the yoke of heaven in dangerous times, and right before he is about to die, to express from the bottom of his heart that he has no questions to Hashem. He's about to die, and it may be a very difficult death. It may be a torturous death in some camp, in a concentration camp. He would say, Shema Yisrael, I have no questions, and no doubt that what you're doing is correct. He would be in danger, and he would say, I only rely on you, Shema Yisrael. These are examples of a Jew's commitment to Hashem. In the most difficult times, Ol Malchut Shamayim, never give it up. But there are things in life that weaken that Ol Malchut Shamayim, and that one has to be very careful with. What happens when a Jew's Ol Malchut Shamayim weakens? He begins to be afraid and scared and concerned because he's lost his bond with Hashem. He doesn't look for Him. He doesn't ask Him for help. And therefore, all of a sudden, he's afraid. What do you mean? What are we going to do? They're going to start shooting missiles at us. How are we going to conquer this land? There are giants there. That's what the spy said. We're going to have a difficult time. Why are you afraid of? You saw all the miracles in Egypt. I mean, there were so many miracles. All of a sudden, you're afraid. All of a sudden, you say you can't do it. Ol Malchut Shamayim is becoming weakened here. That bond is weakening. Therefore, the immediate consequence of that is that a Jew begins to be afraid of what he should not be afraid. Whoever has true Yirat Hashem, whoever really has the fear for heaven, he's not afraid of anything else in this world. If Am Yisrael today would have true Yirat Hashem through Ol Malchut Shamayim, they would have no reason to fear the world. They would say, like, I don't want to say his name, but somebody once said in Israel, Shmum. Is the Hebrew acronym for United Nations. What do we care? Shmum. Let them say what they want. Who cares? I wish he really meant that, but this man was not religious and was still concerned with the opinion of the world. We should not be concerned. Those who are concerned is because they don't have the true Yirat Shamayim that they should have. So how do we strengthen Ol Malchut Shamayim? One way to do so is by never being embarrassed of doing a mitzvah in public. I've spoken, I think, about this in the past. We sometimes have the occasion of praying Mincha or Arvit at the airport. After all, we don't want to miss Mincha and Arvit at the airport. Time is, as soon as we get on the plane, it's going to go by quickly. Before you know it, you've landed. You want to put on tefillin even though you're amongst goyim. They're all Catholics. So what? You don't ask questions, you do what you need to do. At the airport, there are many people walking around. You're going to put on tefillin, what are they going to think? Let them think that you're checking your blood pressure. What do you care? So what? Let them think what they want to think. But you're going to do what is right. The problem is that the Jew is embarrassed. Many people are embarrassed to do mitzvot publicly. They're embarrassed to put on the kippah. I don't want them to think that I'm Jewish. Or they're embarrassed to put on tzitzit. They're embarrassed. If they're at work, they're embarrassed to say a blessing. The guy might think he's talking to the wall. Let him think what he wants to think. You have to do the right thing. One way to therefore strengthen your Ol Malchut Shamayim is to not be embarrassed, never, in performing the mitzvot, whether it's tzitzit, whether it's kippah. Just think of it, this is a beautiful gift that you got from the king. How many Jews have you seen walking around with the beautiful American-Israeli flag here? Or with the insignia of the White House or whatever, that the president may have given them? They're very proud of that. Well, we should be proud of the kippah and of the tzitzit, not be embarrassed. So if a Jew is careful not to show that he's embarrassed, but he publicly, when needed, fulfills the mitzvot, that will help him strengthen his own Malchut Shamayim. Whoever is ashamed, embarrassed of fulfilling mitzvot, in the end he will also be embarrassed from having conquered Eretz Israel. A lot of Israelis today are embarrassed. We took away the land from these poor Arabs. How do they get to that? They're embarrassed of themselves. They have no Jewish pride. And embarrassment of the mitzvot, embarrassment of who you really are, leads to embarrassment of having taken the land that really Hashem gave you. Yes?
But of course it brings lack of... We're suffering today. Tisha B'Av occurred. Jews are paying for it all the generations since the Metagame came back.
No, Tisha B'Av did not occur because of the Metagame. Yeah. Tisha B'Av occurred that the temple was destroyed because of either Sinat Chinam in the second temple, or because of the three cardinal sins in the first temple. It's just that Hashem made it happen on the same day. Right. And that day is a day in infamy, if we can call it that, because of the Metagame. But it's not because the Metagame did what they did, Bet HaMikdash was destroyed too. It's not really related, even though it does contribute to that. And we have suffered as a result of that. But that is a totally separate historical event, not necessarily directly tied into the destruction of the temple. No. Alright, so right now we've spoken and explained a little bit the actions of the Meraglim. Now we have to try to understand the action of Am Yisrael. How did Am Yisrael buy this? All of a sudden we started fearing for our life. We began to cry. Wait a minute. This is Chilul Hashem. Hashem promised everything will be okay. You believe in this bunch of guys? So you may say, well, these are not just a bunch of guys. These are leaders. These are great people. So what? How could you compare them to the Haftarah, to the promise you got from Hashem? How is it possible on the one hand one believes in Hashem, and here one shows that he does not believe his promise? Hashem promised. Unfortunately, this is another problem that occurs to many people, that they lead a dual life. We call it hypocrisy. Imagine somebody coming to pray, to shul, traveling in a car on Shabbat. He wants to do a mitzvah, but he's also doing an avirah. Imagine somebody who says, you know what, I believe in Hashem. He makes kiddush on Shabbat, but he shaves his beard with a blade instead of a machine. You cannot use on your face a blade. So what do we see? People lead sometimes contradictory lives. On the one hand, they say they believe in Hashem, they believe that God created the world, but their actions disprove that. They live a contradiction. They live a contradictory life. How come? Because people many times, unfortunately, have double standards. That is human nature. Double standards. And why are there double standards? Why can't people just be simple and have one standard? Because many times, Retzon Hashem mitnagesh im retzonenu. Many times the will of Hashem is in conflict with what our own personal will is. And that is when the problems begin. Hashem's will interferes with our will. And in order to be able to satisfy both, some people really think, in the back of their mind, that I can have the cake and eat it too. I can do both. I can be a good Jew in my heart. That's what they say. I'm a Jew in my heart. But their actions don't demonstrate that. What do you mean? Where does the Torah say that it's enough to be Jewish in your heart? What about tzitzit, tefillin, Shabbat, Pesach, Yom Kippur? What about all that? Just in your heart? No. It's just an excuse. Because something interferes with their way of life, the way of life that they want to lead. And therefore they lead this dual life. The only way to avoid this conflict is in the same way that we explained before, that the Metagame had several problems. They were misled, they made a mistake. And that is by making chizukim to our emunah, by strengthening our faith. In those three areas that I mentioned with the Metagame. And they are speaking the truth, always speaking the truth, strengthening Ol Malchut Shamayim, and not forgetting what our mission is in life. Continuously focusing on what we need to do. If a Jew focuses all the time what he needs to do, what is expected of him, not just Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is a good time for reflection. And even then, not everybody reflects what happened, but that is a time to reflect. What did I accomplish this past year? What do I need to change? This really should happen almost every day. Part of the nusach of Kriyat Shema, many who say it, is a vidui, confessing what I did wrong today in the morning. I was upset, I yelled at someone, or did something else. A person should really examine himself more often than just once a year. This examination is to help him with his awareness, with his focusing in life, of what he needs to accomplish. Otherwise, before you know it, you're all 75, 85, 95, until 120. You say, where did all the time go away? What did I do? Nothing. Al-Chabal. So in order to not lose track of what we need to do, we need continuous reminders, we need chizukim, we need to strengthen our faith. Ol Malchut Shamayim has to be continuously strong. And this does not only apply to us, it needs to be as well applied to our children. Parents have to be extremely aware of what is happening to a child, because before you know it, you no longer have any control over him. He has become mature, independent. And you say, well, what did I do wrong? It's not what you did wrong, it's what you did not do right. You missed out on all the opportunities you had to build a good kesher, a strong bond with him. The stronger the bond between a parent and a child, the more influence you may have over him, even in later years. But if you've cooled off, you turned off, then he's turned off. He's not going to listen to you. You're going to have a hard time. So we have to be continuously aware and listen to others who point out to our mistakes and not reject them stubbornly, but be willing to be honest and truthful with ourselves. Some additional ideas that are found in this week's parasha is the severity of Lashon Hara. After all, they spoke Lashon Hara. The Metagame spoke slanderous about Eretz Yisrael. And that is why there's a semichut, there's a connection between the end of last week's parasha, Be'alotecha, that deals with Miriam's sin of speaking Lashon Hara about Moshe, and the Metagame. What went wrong? What's the connection here? How come there was Lashon Hara here? So there's a beautiful mashal that says as follows. There was once a businessman who hired an employee. He trusted very much this employee. And one day, this trusted employee took some merchandise from the store, and people were watching him as he was taking merchandise from the store, and he went into a house, and as soon as he left the house, he was empty-handed. So those who observed and said, oh, this guy is a thief. And they started talking bad about him. The owner, the employer, heard about how they were slandering his trusted employee, said, why are you doing this? He's such a good man. You observed something? Why don't you go over to him and ask him? Why don't you investigate it? Why are you just talking? People talk and talk and talk, and they don't realize that they're making a mistake. They're saying Lashon Hara, there's no foundation to what they're saying, bunch of lies, and chaval. People's reputation is damaged perhaps forever, very difficult to repair later on. Be very, very careful before you say something. Don't say it if it's bad. And even if it's true, or even if it may be true, I should say, first investigate it. Maybe you are wrong. Don't reach conclusions so quickly. Look into the matter before you start talking about it. The biggest problem with Lashon Hara is that people do not investigate. They don't ask. They just assume. They reach their own conclusions in their mind, and they are very mistaken. And that is what happened with Miriam. Miriam was mistaken. She questioned Moshe. Why is Moshe leaving his wife? Why is he separating himself from her? Why didn't you ask Moshe yourself? Don't reach your own conclusions. The Metagame, they had a problem. You should have asked Moshe, well, what do we do now? We have this issue here, we have this problem. No, they reached a conclusion. You know what was the terrible conclusion that they reached? What was the biggest problem with what they said? After all, like you mentioned before, they said the truth. They added a very, very dangerous word. Efes ki az ha'am. They said, yes, we saw a beautiful land. Eretz zavat halav udvash. Yes, Efes. Efes literally means however. But this, however, is in bold and double underlined. What do I mean by that? Like we say in Hebrew, Efes sikuyim. There are 0 chances that we will be able to conquer this land. Who told you? Who asked you to give your opinion about our chances? And that is what is happening today in Israel when all these politicians say, well, en brera, we have no choice, but we have to give this land back. En brera? Who told you to say that? What happened with such Kadosh Baruch Hu? He's out of the picture? And to them he is. They should not have said Efes. The Ramban says that was their biggest mistake. Had they just said everything they saw, they observed, they didn't make any mistake. This is what we observed. We don't want to hear your opinion. That's the problem with all the newspapers today. They don't report the news as is. They try to interpret it in their own ways. And that is how they feed people what they want to feed them, what they want them to believe. That's not your job. But unfortunately, that is exactly what they attempted to do, is to discourage Am Yisrael because of their conclusions, their erroneous conclusions. They should not have said Efes. Leave it to Hashem. Now we have to understand, why did Hashem agree to begin with to let these spies go to Eretz Israel? Hashem knew that this was going to be a failure. Why did you let him go? Hashem should have said, Moshe, I don't agree that they should go. No questions asked. I don't want it. Hashem allowed them to go. Rabbi Elyahu brings down the pasuk that says as follows: Sus mukhan lemilchama v'lashem ateshuah. A horse is prepared for war, to do battle, but Hashem is the one that gives Yeshua. Hashem is the one that saves us. What does that mean? So the commentators explain that HaKadosh Baruch Hu expects of us to make hishtadlut. We're supposed to make an effort, whether it's at war or whether it's in the medical field. If somebody's sick, go see a doctor. Parnasa too. So don't forget, even though you need to make an effort, Lashem HaYeshua, but the ultimate Yeshua, the salvation, comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not from your efforts. So Hashem allowed them this because we need to make efforts. We need to prepare an army. We're instructed to do so. Go ahead and enter Eretz Israel. See how best to conquer the land. It wasn't so much to examine if this is true or not, if it's Eretz Zavat or not. The Metagame, what is a Metagame? Let's find how to best conquer the land. So yes, go ahead and prepare a strategy. That is what Yeshua did after all, when he sent spies too. And if we have time, I'll talk about the difference between the spies of Yeshua and the spies of Moshe. The spies of Yeshua made no mistakes. They fulfilled their mission properly. Nothing wrong with sending spies. Hashem says, go ahead and make an effort. Go ahead and do it al piderech hateva. Naturally, go ahead and see where to enter from. But remember, Lashem HaYeshua, they only did the first half of the pasuk. They did not do the second half in believing and in trusting in Hashem. Perhaps HaKadosh Baruch Hu, lechatchila, did not want them to go to the land because Eretz Yisrael is very different than every other land. What you see is not necessarily what really is. Everything in Eretz Yisrael is me'al teva. The land is watered not through rivers and lakes, but nashamayim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu controls and manages that land. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu would have preferred them not entering and examining this land because this is not a land that you can compare with other lands. Things work very, very differently in this piece of land. So now that we've castigated and blamed everything on the Metagame, now I'm going to tell you something completely different. The Metagame do not really get the blame. There's a pasuk that says that if the eyes of the congregation, if the leaders of the congregation commit a sin, how could it happen that the leaders, the king, the Nesi'im, commit an avon? Ki lechol ha'am bishgaga. That's the continuation. It must be because the whole am has done something wrong. And Hashem allows the leaders to make a mistake as a message to us that there's something wrong with us. So even though of course they committed the wrong, but in reality who's to blame? Am Yisrael. Im einei ha'edah, if the leaders of the edah, of the congregation, the eyes of the congregation, if they erred, then it's kilachol ha'am b'shgaga. It must be that we have made a mistake. And what mistake did we make? So the Chidush Ha'arim says as follows on the difference between the Metagame of Yeshua and the Metagame of Moshe. The spies of Yeshua, how did they get away with it? They made it appear as though they're selling Kderot shel Cheres, jugs from earthenware. Who wants to buy Kderot of Cheres? What is Kderot shel Cheres of earthenware? Kli Cheres lo mekabel tum'ah milegav. A vessel from earthenware does not accept tum'ah from the outside, only from the inside. metal does become tameh from the outside. Why does cheres does not become tameh from the outside? So the Chidush Harim explains, because it has no value from the outside. It's made from earthenware. What its only intrinsic value? That it can contain something inside. That's the only. Therefore, from the inside it can become tameh. Otherwise, it has no value. The message behind what they were saying, the spies of Yeshua, is that we're like cheres. We're nothing. All we're interested in doing the Ratzon of Hashem. That is why they succeeded. They set out on a mission from the very beginning, from the very start, to do only the will of Hashem. We're worthless. We're not in this scenario. In other words, don't count us. We're not important. Whereas the Metagame of Moshe, from the very beginning, their plan was about themselves. They thought about themselves. What do we have to gain from this? They did not think as much of the Ratzon of Hashem as much as what their own Ratzon was. And that was the sin of the Am. That generation was more interested in what they have to gain, unfortunately, much more so than what is the real Ratzon of Hashem. A Jew should always focus on what's more important, what does Hashem want. As I like to tell over the story of this young man who the rabbi who taught him meets up with him after many years. So my young man, my dear Talmid, my dear student, how are you doing? Rabbi, believe me, I have no complaints to Hashem. Oh, Hashem. He says, I don't care if you have no complaints to Hashem. I just want to make sure he has no complaints about you. Who cares if you have no complaints to Hashem? We have to be concerned that Hashem should not have complaints about us. We need to be concerned what is the Ratzon of Hashem, not is what our Ratzon is. Unfortunately, in Israel, in the Knesset, they don't ask this question. Wait a minute, let's figure out, does Hashem agree with this or not? What is His Ratzon? Should we give this up or not give it up? They're not asking that question. They want to know what's best for themselves. We're sick and tired of going to war. That's their Ratzon. We don't want to go to war. But that's against the truth. No, they're not concerned about what the truth is. They're not concerned, unfortunately, with what the Ratzon of Hashem is. That is why we have a very, very secularist government in Israel today. Why don't we have a government of tzaddikim? Because it must be that if this is our leaders, this is what the people are like. The leaders, unfortunately, sitting in the Knesset, are a representation of the people. If they're making these stupid mistakes, if they are espousing these corrupt values, it's because, unfortunately, many people, even those who are observant, are not necessarily interested, unfortunately, in what is the truth and what is the Ratzon Hashem, but what is in it for themselves. Yes?
The question I have is,
they were great people, and we can't underestimate their understanding. What they saw, the simplest man in that generation saw what nobody in this generation can ever dream of seeing. Nevertheless, human nature is frail. You always have to remember that. And that's why I gave various angles of trying to figure this out. Even though there's other explanations for what they did, the bottom line was, even though this is a whole different subject, is that they were lacking in bitachon. They were a nation that was just beginning to understand the ways of Hashem. They believed, they said, but they did not understand the ways of Hashem. They questioned everything. Hashem, why do you hold back water from us for 3 days? And it's a good question. But don't cry and don't complain. Don't kvetch, like we say in Yiddish. You have a question, ask Hashem, you know what? This is a desert. It's 110 degrees. It's a little bit difficult to continue without water. Please send us water. They didn't do it. So Hashem was teaching them bitachon. We don't have water and bread. Turn to me and ask nicely. Because I provide food. Just like I'm giving you man for 40 years. Why is Hashem giving man? Because I am the one that gives bread. Not your PhD. Not your any degree in college. I'm giving it to you. So Hashem was teaching us. And they were learning. They are a nation that is learning. We are used to some of these ideas already. And even so, we make mistakes. Even though they were on a very high level, and they saw and they witnessed great things, they did not understand fully what Hashem's intentions were. What was going on here? And they were afraid. Wait a minute. What's happening? There's Yetzer Hara, don't forget, that misleads you. And that's why we need continuous chizukim. Hashem forgave us for the Egel. Hashem forgave us for the head of the Mitonanim, the ones who complained. He even forgave us for what happened with Korah. Why doesn't Hashem forgive the Meraglim? The Chet HaMeraglim, because this is a very serious avon. It comes to teach us that whoever hurts Am Yisrael is in deep trouble. One has to be very careful from hurting Am Yisrael. And that is what the Meraglim did. The whole generation, except for Caleb ben Yefuneh and Yeshua ben Nun, they did not enter Eretz Israel. You have to be very careful. It's a terrible sin. Caleb ben Yefuneh and Yeshua ben Nun, on the other hand, the reward is immense, because they showed no bending. Complete commitment to Hashem, even under very difficult pressures. A very important lesson to learn from this, that a Jew is under continuous challenges and pressures. Never give up. Don't give in. Don't allow your Judaism to be compromised because of all these pressures. Another idea that is very helpful for those who are thinking about Aliyah today, don't put an emphasis on Gashmiut and materialism. Because if that's your only goal in life, you'll be disappointed when you get to Israel. If you go to Israel for the real reasons, you'll stay. If you go for the wrong reasons, the chances are 90% you'll come back because you'll be disappointed. I'd like to just finish with another very important point. The rabbis tell us, three things are bought, are acquired with difficulty. Torah, Eretz Yisrael, and Olam Haba. Very difficult to acquire. Why are they difficult to acquire? So I'll list to you several explanations that I put down over here. One is Hashem wants us to remember that He doesn't give us anything for free. We have to work for it. Eretz Yisrael, you will conquer through wars. It will not be easy. It won't be given to you on a silver platter. You'll have to conquer all the nations. You have to work for it. Nothing is for free. The harder we work on something, the more we will appreciate it. We have to conquer this land. It has value. Number three, it's not so much the difficulty of acquiring something, it's holding on to it. A person may elevate himself and grow very much spiritually. But now let's see him stay where he is and not fall back down. It's harder to hold on to something after you acquired it than to acquire it to begin with. There's also difficulty with Eretz Yisrael, Torah, Olam Haba because of all the great sechar that is awaiting for us. All the ma'alot that we will elevate ourselves. Hashem is therefore reminding us that this is not something superficial. This is something very, very elevated. By making it hard, He reminds us of that point. It's also difficult because the Yetzer interferes and disturbs. It's also difficult because we are incomplete. Our midot are not refined. And it's also difficult because Hashem wants to see who will fight for it and who will not fight for it. This is a way to determine who really cares about it and who not. We don't have that much time, but perhaps I'll just share with you a quick story. There was once a rabbi who had a question as to why certain charities coming from Europe were being given to a certain family in Israel. Why do these boys deserve it more than others? And he questioned this rabbi who was sending the money. And that night he had a dream. In the dream it said, Tova ha'aretz me'od me'od. This land is very, very good. And it also says, me'od me'od haveh shel ruach. Be very, very humble. What's the connection between the two? Why does it say me'od me'od by humbleness and me'od me'od by Eretz Yisrael? Only who is humble, very humble, can see the beauty and the good in Eretz Yisrael. Only if you would be humble, that was the message of the rabbi, would you be able to see the good in these people. And you would know why they deserve this money. He became humble, he worked upon himself, and then he finally realized that these were very special people. If we develop humbleness, we will be able to focus on only the good in people. That will spare us from Lashon Hara, that will spare us from Sinat Chinam, that will spare us from Machloket, and Bezat Hashem, that will bring us the Geulah, B'karov B'yamino, Amen.